evening everybody. It is Wednesday the 3rd of August and the nights are drawing in. It's getting rubbish. It was light outside and now it's getting darker and darker. It's been quite windy today as well. Summer's over, that week that we had. So carrying on with the Highlands, I think I've got about 10 Highlands to get off. I was about to say to knock off, but that sounds a little bit dodgy. To get off the case, which doesn't make any sense either. So, the first one is Aberfeldy, and this is actually an older bottling. It comes in a cardboard tube. It's quite dark. I think it's just because I've knocked the brightness down on the camera. So comes in a tube. Now I'm a little bit concerned because having just pulled this out of the tube, if you watched my Glen Turret video review, you would have known that that was another miniature where it was sealed, but there was quite a bit that had seemed to have evaporated out of the miniature. And unfortunately, that is quite a fair chunk, and it is still sealed. It's not been opened, so I'm a little bit concerned. Now, this is actually bottling from before 2005. Let me go on about the distillery itself. So Aberfeldy is here. Nowhere really sort of near it to be able to say, you know, it's just outside Glasgow or Inverness or wherever. So on the map, it's kind of halfway between Dundee and Fort William, but that's not exactly a short drive between itself. It's kind of slap bang in the middle of Scotland. And it was founded in 1896 and first started distilling in 1898 by the company John Dewars and Sons, which at the time were a really big sort of blending company, and they needed a distillery to make whiskey to produce for their blends to satisfy the demand. So it was built purely for that purpose, and it was quite a good transport link so that they could get it where they needed to go. So it was a case of, right, look, we've got Dewars, it's a really big blend, we need to make whiskey ourselves for it because it's not cost effective to be buying it from other distillers, and we can't guarantee that they're going to make the quality that we want or the quantity. So 1898 first started distilling, and it's still a large component of Dewars, having had a few switch arounds in between. It closed in 1917 for two years because of the demands for barley during the First World War, and it actually closed again during the Second World War. Don't know exactly what years it was closed, but it was closed for a couple of years in the Second World War, again for the same reason. Barley was required, food was in shortage, and it just couldn't keep up with demand. Now in 1925, so obviously before the Second World War, the distillery was bought by the Distillers Company Limited, DCL, which eventually became Diageo, and they operated it up to 1998 when, sorry, not 1998, yes, 1998. In 1972, they actually did a bit of a sort of a refurb on it, sort of rebuilt it to an extent, replaced some stills, that sort of thing, and just kind of tarted it up. John Dewars and Sons, who at that point were then part of the Bacardi conglomerate, bought the distillery back from Diageo in 1998, and a year later then launched this, which was the sort of official 12-year-old, because it wasn't really a sort of a big single malt, and it still isn't that much, to be honest, because it's so heavily prevalent in blends. So when they launched this 12-year-old, this was the packaging for it, and you'll notice that on the front, on there, it's actually got a picture of John Dewar. So you know, this was kind of a John Dewar and Sons, the company, had bought the distillery back from Diageo, and then a year later released this, going, "Oi, look who's on the label. This is ours. All right, this belongs to us." So up to 2005, that's what this bottling was. Then it changed to a sort of more stumpy bottle with a cream label. This is what Aberfeldy 12-year-old looks like now. You're looking at about 35 quid a bottle, 30 to 35 quid, 35 quid on average. And it's fairly well regarded. It's kind of a bit of a middle of the road one. And again, you know, a lot of it is used in Dewars blend, which is sold predominantly in the US and also in Europe. So, as I say, we know this particular bottling is a 12-year-old, but the actual bottle itself is at least 11 years old. It being 2016 and them having changed this in 2005. My maths is pretty rubbish, but I managed to figure that one out for myself. There's right, isn't it? This is when somebody goes, no, actually, Ben. And I'm just a little bit concerned as to how much has evaporated out of this, because the Glen Turret, to be honest, the Glen Turret that I had was even more than that. But that really was affected by it. That really didn't taste right at all. So we'll see. Because I haven't been able to, well, I haven't sourced any other Aberfeldy. I've not asked for it because I knew I had this one. I probably should have looked at the miniature, should have taken it out of the tube, but we live and learn. So let's see what this is like. Might be a little bit affected. Now the Glen Turret was really, really harsh, whereas this, it does smell quite woody, but it's predominantly oak, but it doesn't smell wrong or off to me. We'll see. It's pretty oaky, but I don't think it's too bad. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's just quite an oaky whiskey. There is a lot of barrel flavour coming through. There's a nice maltiness to it, to be perfectly honest. No idea what cask they're matured in. Don't even know if it says on the back of the label. Probably sounds something like oak. Fresh spring water was taken from nearby Pitley Burn and used to produce the single malt whiskey with its distinctive peaty nose. Oaky woody nose, but I wouldn't consider that peaty. But I'm not sure whether this would have a peaty nose anyway. And according to this, it's the malt from the House of Dewar. Now, actually, the distillery itself is home to Dewar's World of Whisky, which is a bit like the famous Grouse experience, which weirdly is at Glen Turret. It's very much like famous Grouse experience, and it's like it's like a tourist centre, tourist attraction, but predominantly about Dewars as a blend, that brand, rather than Aberfeldy itself. But as famous Grouse experience has just pretty much taken over the Glen Turret distillery and go, oh yeah, they make whiskey here, but famous Grouse. So yeah, peatiness, no. It's more of an oakiness, to be honest, but it's not unpleasant. If it's not supposed to taste like this, I do apologise to Aberfeldy, but this is what I've got, and it's very classic whiskey-ish. It's, to be honest, it's what I would associate the smell of whiskey when I was about 8, 9, 10 years old. If I used to smell a whiskey, it used to smell of wood and alcohol and warmth, and it does kind of evoke feelings of being a child smelling a grown-up's whiskey and not really being able to differentiate, not really being able to sort of recognise the subtleties within, just like a woody whiskey smell. And it's actually quite pleasant. It's almost kind of comforting. So yeah, there's a smooth maltiness, and there is this oakiness, but it's pleasant. It's not harsh. It's not overpowering, but it's the dominating flavour. I'm not 100% convinced that Aberfeldy is supposed to taste like this, simply because of the amount that it evaporated out of the miniature. But this is actually quite a pleasant dram on its own. And if Aberfeldy is supposed to taste like this, it's not that bad at all. It's not mind-blowingly amazing, but it's actually pleasant and comforting, and it's almost like a throwback. And maybe it is the fact that they have changed it since they've done the new versions, and it's entirely possible it's a different beast altogether. But this is almost like a throwback whiskey to how you think whiskey tasted when you were a kid and you weren't allowed to drink whiskey, but you smelled it and you think, right, well, I think it must taste like that. It must taste like wood and warmth and winter, and so it's weird. It's really hard to describe, but It's very, very intriguing. I'd be very interested to see what the new 12-year-olds are like. I'm highly unlikely to get any from anywhere, and I've got another 173 to go. And I doubt that that's going to last until January 26th next year. But if that sounds like that's wrong to you, and if somebody's had Aberfeldy recently and can actually say, well, to be honest, it tastes like this, it tastes, it's a different beast altogether, brilliant, put it in the comments. But very, very interesting. Very, very interesting indeed. Right, quick rinse out, and I shall crack on with the next one, which is kind of Highlands, but kind of not, if that makes sense. So see you then. Cheers.